For getting an agenda like
So
this.
tonight at 6 o'clock, we're having a workshop meeting. There'll be a presentation of the general budget, where we are moving forward. And
Don't let me bother you.
we're not doing, and we're not doing that right now.
Better not.
I love it, laughing, good, good. So tonight, as we move forward, there's a lot on the agenda. So tonight, I know that we've been in quite a transition, so I'm asking for grace and for people to, engage. But again, grace as we all are working together. And so tonight, we have Tara Dunfield, who is our CPA, who has been working on the budget. I think she's going to have some very good news moving forward. And so she's going to be presenting the budget. Lots of conversation about the bond money, the municipal building. We did lots of research, and we're going to provide you all the information on that. So it's not just going to be hearsay, it's going to be facts. So as soon as Tara comes on, we'll get started.
She's here. She's here.
Good evening. Casey, are you able to enable sharing so I can share my screen?
Our IT guy is not here, so that's a no. He made you.
Wait, here comes Nick.
Oh, wait just a minute.
Nick.
Fire Chief Nick might be saving the day.
Okay, wonderful.
Adam said to set it up, so.
We should go.
Okay.
Okay, are you able to share now?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nick. Today.
Big hand for Nick.
Hey.
Off to a good start. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tara Dunford, the city's contracted accountant. To start with a little bit about me, I'm a CPA and local government financial consultant. I've worked as a consultant for the past 8 years, and in that time have worked for over 50 separate local governments doing a variety of accounting and finance related work. I started my career with the state auditor's office and have held positions as a senior accountant, internal auditor, controller, and finance director, all for local governments here in Washington state. I do local government all day, every day. So it's everything I do. I don't do taxes. I don't do any other work other than government. My role with your city is to assist the mayor and council with understanding the city's budget and understanding the fiscal impact of potential changes or decisions. Additionally, I serve as a technical resource for the mayor and staff on finance and accounting issues as they arise. I'm currently contracted with the city for a maximum of 100 hours at a cost not to exceed $18,500. And the city can cancel that contract at any time if you're unhappy with me. Rest assured. Okay. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to discuss the status of the city's general fund budget. I've provided a summary of the 2024 budget for all city funds for reference. We will get to the other city funds at a later date, but tonight I want to focus on the general fund as that's the main operating fund of the city. It's the most constrained as far as available resources and therefore the most important fund to focus on when considering your budget. As noted, the general fund is funded over 75% by taxes. So again, we're really constrained with resources in the general fund. I don't want to dig too far into the past, but I do think it's important to have a baseline view of the city's recent budget activity in order to understand better the current picture. So with that in mind, I want to point out a few things. And I should note that this snippet is a consolidated version of the first page in your handouts. If you have the council packet in front of you, the first page of my work includes a more detailed view than what you're looking at on your screen. The city's general fund, in my opinion, has been in a precarious position at least since 2020, as evidenced by the fact that the ending fund balance in 2020 was less than $1,000. Best budget practices would indicate that fund balance should be maintained at a level of 15 to 25% of annual expenditures. To be at zero is really concerning. Adequate fund balance levels were obtained in 2021 and 2022. However, that was only due to federal COVID funds received during those years, totaling $464,000 over 2 years. These ARPA funds did effectively balance the budget in 2022, but the problem with that is that ARPA funds were one-time resources and appear to have been used to fund ongoing expenses. Again, that's fine if it was a known or temporary thing, but it's really hard to tell looking at the numbers whether that's the case or not. More concerning is that the city's general fund balance decreased over $500,000 in 2023. That's a huge number for a city this size with a budget of less than $2 million. And it brought the fund balance back down to quite a low level. Cuts were made to the expenditure budget in 2024, and the 2024 budget was balanced in terms of projected revenues equal projected expenditures. That's a good thing. However, as we'll discuss next, actual revenues are coming in substantially less than budgeted so far in 2024. So this slide and the next few will go with the second page of your packet. What you're looking at on your slide is a very consolidated view of the second packet page. It's comparing the 2024 budgeted amounts to 2024 projections. So the projections are shown in green. Those are based on year-to-date actuals adjusted for planned changes to staffing and services that are known currently. Obviously, anytime we're doing projections or estimates, they're just that, just estimates. These things could change, but it's our best guess based on what we know right now. Note that fund balance is projected to increase by nearly $50,000 during 2024. We'll dig into the details behind that in the next slides, but as we look at some things which might be concerning on the revenue side, keep in mind that overall things actually don't look that bad, and it seems like we're on the right track for the year as a whole. Oops. Okay, so this slide is showing revenues budgeted versus projected. Again, a little bit more detail than on the prior slide. Revenues are projected to be nearly $300,000 less than budget due to two primary factors. So first, business and occupation and electric utility taxes are expected to be approximately $185,000 less than budgeted due to closure of the mill. It's unclear to me why these revenue lines were not adjusted downwards in the 2024 budget development process. Additionally, the intergovernmental revenue budget includes $100,000 from an RCO grant for park maintenance. However, this money is not expected to be received until 2025. This next slide shows, again, further breakdown of your main revenue source, which is taxes. As noted earlier, the most significant variances are in B&O and electric utility taxes, again, related to mill closure. The mill closure happened end of 2022. So again, I'm really not sure why the 2024 budget numbers were so optimistic. It is a little bit less conservative than I would typically see in city budgeting. However, that said, I don't know all the ins and outs of everything happening in the city. Note that sales tax is on track to come in right in line with the budget, although this is based on only 2 months of data, so projections could change, of course, as the year progresses. We'll continue to monitor and hope for the best on this one. Projected property taxes are based on the actual levy, so they're not expected to change at all based on actual receipts as they come in. So far we've established that the 2024 budget was balanced in terms of budgeted revenues equaling budgeted expenditures. However, Projected revenues are expected to be significantly less than budgeted, which necessitates a related decrease in expenditures. This has been accomplished via recent staffing changes. So there's three main variations between the budgeted expenditures and projected expenditures. First, on the finance line, which includes finance and administration, expenditures are projected to be approximately $70,000 less than budgeted due to vacancies in the city administrator, finance director, and deputy clerk treasurer positions. The projections are based on those vacancies continuing for the remainder of the year. However, the projections have been increased to reflect an interim plan of filling a clerk treasurer position and a part-time utility billing clerk position, leaving the other three vacant. So the net amount of those changes adds up to general fund savings of $70,000. Note that this includes the general fund portion only and not amounts allocated to utility funds. The second large change on the expenditure side is in the law enforcement line. So this has been adjusted downwards by approximately 119,000 to reflect reducing the number of police officers from 4 positions to 1 for the remainder of the year, reducing the police chief position to 50%, adding the police clerk position back at 10 hours a week, and adding the Aberdeen contract at $11,000 per month for 10 months. I'm sorry, that should say Aberdeen contract at $11,000 for 9 months. And then lastly, a placeholder reserve for cash flow line was identified in the budget. This placeholder account is not reflective of actual expenditures, which is why the projected amount is 0 here. The purpose of this next slide is to show projected cash flow by month. So most revenues and expenditures are fairly consistent month to month. The big exception is property taxes, which are due at the end of April and October and are not received by the city until May and November, respectively. The timing of the property tax payments makes the general fund income statement, if you will, look very poor in the first months of the year and artificially good in May and November. As such, evaluating the net change in fund balance by month is not a particularly relevant or useful metric for city general funds. I hope this visual serves to explain that while fund balance did decrease substantially in January and February, it does not mean that the city is out of money or unable to operate. Rather, this is a fairly normal picture for small cities which are heavily dependent on property tax revenues. Of course, by building up a more healthy fund balance, you'd hope to not run into the negative so often or get close to running into the negative, but that is the reality at the moment. It does appear that the fund balance will go negative in March and April. That doesn't mean the city doesn't have cash or that the city cannot pay its bills. The city, in fact, does have sufficient cash on hand to cover these minor negative balances. And things look good as the year progresses. Technically speaking, it could be appropriate to book a temporary interfund transfer to cover the negative balances. However, in practice, this is not typically done unless there's a negative balance at year end. Our current projections anticipate a positive and healthy fund balance by year end, so interfund transfers to the general fund are unlikely to be necessary in 2024. So my next steps are to continue monitoring the general fund projections and cash flow and performing similar analysis for the remaining funds. And the next one that I want to look at is the sewer fund, because I know the city's a little bit behind on payments to Aberdeen. So we need to figure that out and also evaluate the contract that's expiring for sewer services. Additionally, I'm working with the mayor and legal bond counsel to establish an appropriate investment strategy for the bond funds. The bond fund currently has over $2 million in it, which is entirely maintained in a low interest savings account at a local bank. This money could possibly be transferred to the state local government investment pool, which is currently paying over 5% per year in interest. However, we have to take some steps first in order to make sure that the city follows all arbitrage and other bond requirements. We're currently working on that with bond counsel. Additionally, the city needs to establish 2 signers on the state local government investment pool account. This requires approval via council resolution, so it's a bit of a process that has to be established first. Interest rates in the state pool were very low in 21 and 22, so very little was lost in terms of unearned interest revenue. However, if funds had been invested in 2023, it would have been approximately $90,000 of interest revenue earned, and the city could have been earning about $10,000 a month so far in 2024. So it is an unfortunate thing that this hasn't been done yet. We're working on getting this in place if we're legally able to do so. Any interest earned on bond funds must be used for the underlying project. And it should be noted that these bond funds are required to be spent on the administration building. It was voter approved. We can't simply hang on to these funds or return them or use them for something else. So everything we're talking about related to the bond fund assumes that the project goes forward and we spend those monies as promised to voters. That concludes my prepared presentation for tonight, and I'll open it up for questions.
So this is a great time. There've been lots of questions and comments out there. You have an expert here. So council, questions from you first.
I'm not sure if you can see me or hear me, but this is Councilman Spargo. And I just received this information yesterday around 4 p.m., so I haven't got enough time to go over everything. Could I contact you to ask you some questions at a later date?
Sure, the mayor can provide my contact information to you.
Perfect, thank you so much.
So Tara, I have a question. One of the things that as a city we've really been looking at, how do we stay in the black moving forward? And can you kind of give us an idea of where we're going to be moving into January with our revenue?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that I know there's been personnel issues that have happened that have been unfortunate for the city, but when I look at the numbers from a purely number standpoint, there's a silver lining to this story because your expenditures do look really good compared to revenues. And I think with the proposed changes, leaving certain positions open and operating at a lower staffing level, the city can get back on track. The city can operate in the black, if you will. I'm projecting $50,000 to the good this year. That's reflective of being fully staffed for the first 3 months, paying leave buyout. So if we take those numbers into 2025, this city should in fact be looking even better next year.
This is Councilman Nguyen. Just a general question about your analysis. Will you be providing any kind of broader generalizations or recommendations about our fiscal strategy? You know, like how we allocate funds to capital investments or staffing. You know, I feel like this is a really clear budget presentation. It's there weren't any surprises here for me, so I appreciate that. But I'm just wondering if there will be any guidance offered that we can look to as you step away and you know we're left with managing the budget on our own.
Yeah, absolutely. My first step is always to understand where we currently are. I don't want to jump in and start making suggestions without understanding the current picture. So this is the starting point. dependent on how long it is before the city has a permanent person on board, I'll continue to work with the mayor in the somewhat limited time I have to help the city, and we can go step by step and see how far we can get in the process. I do want to look at fairly early on how costs are allocated between the funds. I can't speak to whether it's right or wrong now. It just is more of a question in my mind. Is there a different way to do it? Has the process been looked at, and is there any possibility of shifting funds away from the general fund using an allowable and backed up methodology? So that is something that I would hope to look at in the near term. And then another near term thing is the investment strategy and how city funds are handled. That in the past few years has not been such a big issue because interest rates were so low, but as they've really risen very quickly in the last year or two, it's become a lot more critical to manage investments, and that can yield some money for the city too.
Okay, thanks. I think I was thinking a little more along the lines of, how funds are generally allocated in terms of, what's best practice for a municipality. But that's helpful also. My other question was, in terms of the contract that we have with you, how many of the hours have we been billed for so far? Just kind of wondering how far out?
We're doing pretty well. I think I've billed 8 hours last month, and we're maybe another 8 to 10 so far this month. So I'm keeping it as minimal as possible. I'm trying to cover as much ground as possible by being at the same time really cognizant of the city's budget constraints. So when I accepted this agreement, I told the mayor I had a maximum of 8 hours a week available. Really, it's been closer to 4. So we're stretching that time out as much as possible.
Great, thank you.
Are there any questions from the audience regarding the budget or the bond issue, the bond money? There was lots of conversation out there about that.
As long as it's going forward.
So the other thing, it is going forward, and we cannot hold on, as Tara said, we cannot hold on to that money. We can, it looks like we are on track for January of 2025 to complete that project. We still can make interest. We talked to the bond attorney. We've done all of our research here. And so working with Tara, she's working with the bond attorney. And once we're able to move it with the 2 signatures approved by the council, that will happen.
Sorry, one additional question related to the bond. Has there been any analysis, or will there be any analysis on the bond as an investment? So I'm not talking here about putting it in the state fund to accrue interest, but I'm talking about the sort of the appraised value of the building relative to the cost to the city. And please feel free to ask for clarification if you need it, because barely stringing together words tonight.
Yeah, a little clarification would be great. Yes, please.
Yeah, so I think what I'm wondering is, the essence of my question is in terms of an investment for the city, how does this building stand? And will you not be answering that question, or can you?
That's really a question I won't be able to answer, and the be all and end all of this is the ship has kind of sailed. Voters approved this. The debt was issued. Per the bond attorney, there's really no backing out now. The city's obligated to provide what voters were promised when they voted on this debt. So whether it's a good investment, a bad investment, good for the city, bad for the city, sure, I could spend some time analyzing that, but is it really worthwhile when we're on that path and can't jump off it at this point?
Yeah, just to circle back to my earlier question. So I think there is value in answering that question, and it is to inform us in the future if those types of capital investments are prudent for our city to vote on in the future, right? So if it is determined that the building, we have to do it, but it wasn't a great investment, then that's going to be useful for us to know in the future compared to if it was a great investment and we should potentially look at doing another one.
Yeah, if the mayor would like me to utilize my time to look into that, I certainly could do that. I guess the caveat would be, obviously, I would be using information that I have available to me now, which obviously prior staff didn't have the benefit of a crystal ball. So, yes, it's certainly something we could look into.
Okay, I mean, that's enough. I mean,
That's fair enough.
Discuss, and I don't think it's a priority necessarily, but it would be really great to know that if it's something that you can do relatively easily. That's all for me.
Tara, I have a question. It's Councilmember Collette. Just a quick one. Would it be advisable to move the bond funds from a lower interest account to a higher interest account?
Yes, it would, but we need to go through the steps to make sure that that's allowable. So there's a couple of things at play. One, there are federal arbitrage requirements associated with tax exempt bonds. In a nutshell, that means you can't earn interest on tax exempt investments. There are exceptions that the city may qualify for. They're around the length of time that you will invest the money, how long you're holding on to it, how much you're making, whether you're a small issuer or a large issuer. Bond counsel is looking into that for us now to determine if we're safe to invest that money or not. It's all tied up in the IRS rules and the bond covenants themselves. And then the second piece of it is more administrative in nature, that we need to establish signers on the local government investment pool account. Given staffing changes, there is no one at the city currently that can move money.
Okay, thank you.
And so, Tara, if I may add on that, speaking with the bond attorney, my understanding, if we were going to move bonds of kind of a 3-year time frame, that we would have moved that. But because it has been in a low interest bearing account, we may, and Terry, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we may be exempt. That's one of the things the bond attorneys are looking at, to look at when we invest that, we won't be penalized. So that's the thing that they're looking at. And so even if it's a short time, it's better than not doing it at all.
Correct, absolutely. Yes, and we just need to make sure that our ducks are in a row and that we're not obligating the city to paying back money or getting penalized by the IRS.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Steve Davis, 825 Fifth. I have 2 questions. First off is how many billable hours does the CPA have at this point, including today, roughly?
Well, Tara just answered that question. Tara, could you do that again?
Yes, hang on, I can tell you exactly in a moment. I did roughly 8 hours last month, and this month to date, I've done 12. So we're at 20 hours so far.
Spectacular, thank you. The next question is, we talk about the bond fund for the construction of the police department, but there's also a residual bond fund that has to do with an LID.
Yes.
That happened years ago, that's still, there's like $50,000 in that account. Have you addressed that issue at all?
I have not addressed that. It's on my list of things to look at. There's that LID account, and there's also money sitting in the 1997 bond account. In theory, both of those can be moved. We need to pull the bond covenants to determine where we can legally put that money. So yes, it's something I've identified. However, not something I've gotten to yet.
Thank you. I appreciate your efforts.
Yeah. I really do want to thank you, Tara. I think you have really assisted our city in moving forward, and I think we're going to be in the black. It's going to be a very thin line, and we're going to be very conservative moving forward. And I don't have any other questions. Anyone else? Because I know you're charging every minute, so we're not gonna keep you any longer than we need to.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have about 30 minutes until the council meeting, so if you'd like to mingle, take a break, go out and enjoy the sunshine, please do. Okay? And so the packet, as you can see, we have, may I see your packet? We have a lot in this packet, and normally I'd like to have packets for everyone. And so this is online. If you, a lot of this you probably wouldn't want, but I know a lot of you sitting here tonight, I realize you want that budget information. I am happy to run the budget packets and have it at City Hall tomorrow for you, okay? It is online though.
We'll see if we get people moving, Jeremy. Yeah.
And the question
What are you doing?
Stop recording right now, right? That's what it
She
is.
is good. She's good. We, so we're gonna be starting the meeting shortly. I know that people in the back are having a hard time listening. I have been looking at microphones for the back of the room. And up front, we will do our best to speak up. If you're back there, please speak up so we can hear your questions. If you can't hear us, please let us know. I'll stand and help project the voice. I will tell you, as all of you know, I'm kind of like a deer in headlights when I come up here. I can work all day, but put me in front of this and I just kind of go blank. So I have a script. I'm going to stay to my script. So if my head's down, again, please give me grace so we can have a nice meeting that flows and we can get through business this evening. So I'm going to ask the chief to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I, Mayor Springo, it's Wednesday, April 17th, 2024, and I call the council meeting to order. Casey, will you do roll call?
Councilman Skinner,
Present.
Councilman Nguyen,
Present?
Councilman Spargo,
Here?
Councilman Colette,
Here?
Councilman Ansich,
Here.
department heads, Chief Fowley,
Here.
Chief Lehman.
Here.
Thank you. We will now move into public comments. So the floor is open for public comments only on agenda items. Oh, I'm sorry. See, I took my eyes off my script. Oh no, public comments before that.
Oh,
Oh, this is on Casey. She goofed up on my script.
I was cutting and pasting in the wrong order, my bad.
Okay, so approval of,
I motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
any discussion? All, here we go. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we're moving on to public comment, only on agenda items. Please state your name and limit your time to 3 minutes only. Are there any public comments?
Yeah, Mayor, my name is Gary Slusher. I've heard a lot of information on what's going on with the city hall and the new police station. I want to know 100% facts, no BS. I want to know exactly what's going on so I can make a right decision.
So, it is public comments. So what I'd like you to do is reach out to me after the meeting. We had a presentation about the municipal building and the bond earlier this evening at 6 o'clock. And so this is for comments only at this time. And so I'm happy to meet with you and give you all of the information at that time. And we could do it after the meeting or we can set up an appointment.
Now, Mayor, I don't believe that's quite correct. I believe all the city people in this whole community have the right to know exactly what is going on with the city hall. They have to know everything, all of the pros and all of the cons, so they can make the accurate decision. It's not just me, this is for everybody in this community.
Thank you.
I'm tired of listening to hearsay from one person and another. I want everybody to be on board with exactly what is going on, not just personal, you telling me. That doesn't do this community any good. All of us have to know exactly what is happening, 100%. Nothing behind it. If we're using our money right or we're using our money wrong, we have to know.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Any other comments?
Steve Davis, 825 Fifth. The agenda came out yesterday, somewhere around, I don't know, 3 o'clock or whatever, it was posted online. And it's pretty thick. There's a lot of information there. And I find it difficult to be able to read it and research it and be able to even form a valid opinion on myself. And I would assume that the council has the same problem. So I'm not sure that we bring things forward, how quickly we bring things to a vote sometimes. And I would just like to offer the suggestion that it's okay to table things to the next council meeting if you're not clear or you don't have a good fundamental understanding of what's in the message.
Thank you for your comments. Any other questions? Comments? Not seeing any, so we will move on to committee reports.
Consent agenda, approval of agenda. We didn't do consent agenda.
Okay. Casey.
What did I do?
It's okay. Okay, so we are looking at.
I think they moved to accept the agenda. Now we're gonna approve the
Okay.
agenda from the previous meeting.
So
That's the part we're here.
We will need to approve the agenda for the 20th meeting and the April 3rd meeting, special meeting. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion that we approve those agendas.
Second.
Who was second?
Mark. All in favor?
Are there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion,
Opposed?
pardon?
All opposed?
All opposed?
Motion carried.
Motion carried. Okay, committee reports, please. Parks Committee,
No meeting report?
Finance Committee,
No meeting at this time.
Public Safety Committee.
I think what we discussed will be covered by by Chief Bailey later.
Public Safety, and do we have any other committee reports at this
We
time?
would have it.
Public Works.
Public Works.
Public Works, myself and Justin met with Jamin and Tom a couple weeks ago. I believe Justin addressed most of their concerns with you and reported back to them, so I think that was about it, unless you got anything.
Yeah, we followed up with the 2 city workers we have left, just to see how everything was going. They had some concerns of financially where they were, what projects they could take on, only 2 guys. Hard to move bulldozers, hard to move work trucks, hard to move equipment when you're playing musical cars. So they have kind of had some difficulties accomplishing some of the bigger jobs that come around this time of the year. But we are working towards hopefully finding some people to fill in and assist those guys, and they know financially they can purchase what they need to complete tasks to kind of get them ready for the spring, summertime.
So,
That's all I have.
thank you, and I will touch on that. I have been meeting with our public work gentleman, Tom and Jamin. We talked about the budget, and so we do have some funding there for them, and so we are meeting and working on that. Any other comments?
Can I just amend, on the Parks Committee, Councilman Spargo and I did speak, and we are planning to reconvene sometime around the beginning of May.
Okay. All right, moving on.
Sorry, Linda, I had one more regarding Public Works. What has happened with the landscapers? We never got a verification. Do we still have landscaping?
Yes, we do, and I spoke with Polly, the gentleman, and they are on track. We talked about because I did get an invoice and I was looking at that, and so as far as the cemetery, they're contracted to do so many maintenance kind of things around the cemetery, and they are working on the streets. I talked to Tom about that. So yeah, they've been engaged and we're moving forward and everything's on track with that. Any other questions?
That's all I have.
Okay, so moving on to city official reports. Chief Lehman?
No report.
Chief Farley?
Valley.
Valley.
No problem. Yeah, I'm gonna actually pick on Shannon Bailey real quick. Shannon's one of our volunteers here at the fire department. On Monday of this week, we had 3 of your volunteers here to complete their EMT training with the County EMT Academy. They've been in class 3 days a week all year since the turn of the year, working on their EMT certification. So they have one final step, all 3 of them to pass their national exam, but they've completed all of the state requirements and the local requirements. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
They're, 3 of this, they'll come up to 7 EMTs that you guys have on board right now with the fire department, of our 19 total members. So we're still trying to build. We still have 5 in fire academy right now. We're sending 5 to Wildland Fire Academy here middle of next month, and we have a few more going through the 2 steps below the EMT advanced first aid training in May as well. So a lot of training going on, trying to build back numbers here within the agency. Other than that, I'll sit back down. I'm not pointing at her. I also want to thank Nick for his dedication. I know how much time he's given before Shannon going through the training. So I really appreciate it.
And Mr., go ahead.
Okay, I'll try to keep it short. Otherwise, this weekend's busy for your public safety agencies across the county. Chief Lemon and I have both been tied in with this Saturday's a full-scale active shooter exercise in the city of Oakland. So you'll see a lot of police and fire agencies participating in that. And then on Sunday in Montesano, we have the service for Deputy Gregory with the Sheriff's Office who passed away last month. My final item to talk about tonight, I believe I emailed all of you last week regarding it. The city of Oakland last Monday during their city council meeting voted to reach out to the cities of Cosmopolis and Atherton to see if there's interest in revamping the regional fire authority plan and see if there's interest in the 3 cities moving forward with the plan. I talked with public safety a little bit about it. It's something that, if you care, for my opinion, right now we don't have the capacity to start this planning process again. We've got enough things going on here within the city. Something I don't really have time to bring onto my plate right now, how much that planning process really takes. But I did tell the city of Oakland that I'd bring it to you guys to see if there is interest from the council to try to revamp the planning process. As our council member Wayne mentioned, if we were to do the planning process again, we need to pretty much gut the funding mechanisms and rediscuss that at the planning level. So if you were to move forward with it, since I know most of you weren't here for the last planning, there would be 2 members of the council appointed to the planning committee. So you have this stake from the city, as well as myself. I'd be on the planning committee. So I just kind of want to open it up if there's any conversation, thoughts, feelings about it.
I did have a separate question not regarding that. Out of your firefighters, how many are Causey residents?
I'd have to look at the numbers off the top of my head. I believe it was 8.
8 out of your 19 live in Cosmopolis?
Yep.
Okay.
A handful live within like a 5-minute radius, as the state rating bureau looks at. Those who live outside that radius are required to pull so many shifts per month within the city.
Gotcha, thank you.
Of course. Any conversation on the RFA?
Well, I'd like to say this. I think that regarding the RFA, that the citizens made their view on it pretty clear with the last vote. The way that was voted down here, it was a very high percentage of folks voting it down from here.
And I'll just add to that, you know, it's I think I already expressed, you know, if the new proposal resolves the concerns that the citizens have, and if you think that, so what I'm hearing from you is that even to start to resolve those concerns, you think we maybe don't have the capacity to really look at that process again?
I don't think at this moment, any of us, you know, because it'd be 3 of us working on it from the city's perspective. I know we're all stretched thin right now, given the current situation. That's kind of my take on it, and maybe that's my opinion.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is, so from my perspective, if they're going to submit a new proposal for us to look at, then I would say, sure, why not? But it sounds like it would require a lot of involvement, as it should require our involvement, that would be significantly challenging.
Right, so if Hopeland has expressed interest, if Aberdeen expresses an interest and we express interest, then you reformulate that planning committee and come up with, right? We'll use the existing plan, but there do have to be some modifications made. If we said yes and Aberdeen said no, from the last understanding I've gotten, we'd have to have legal review that again. But without touching, there's a lot of issues with just Cosmopolis and Hope. So Aberdeen may say no, and that kind of takes care of this whole issue, you know, so.
Okay, are you requesting any action from the council?
I would like to have a vote to take back to them, but it's not necessary by any means. If we have a good temperature feel, I'll bring that back. I'll bring back to them whatever message you guys would like.
Okay, thank you. I think we might need some time to think about it.
Okay. So pending any questions, that's the end of my report.
Good, thank you. And Chief Valley, great job with the fire department. Excellent, thank you very much. Moving on to Mayor's report. So this Saturday, this Earth Week is coming up, and this Saturday at Mill Creek Park, the Grays Harbor stream team will be putting on an event where we are going to be pulling noxious weeds and planting trees. We did have some trees down in Mill Creek. They are all, I talked to our public works, they are going to have all of that taped off so people know not to go near the down trees. They're going to provide refreshments. It starts from 9 a.m. to 1 o'clock. A great way to get out, make a difference in our park there. And talking about Mill Creek, one of the things working, as you saw with our CPA, it was a really nice report. We actually had some money back into the park funds, which we have not had for quite some time. And so talking with Tom today, we will be meeting and looking at if we use that budget or if we get a bid from a contractor to get those trees that have fallen in that park out of there, because they need to come out. And so people can access that park. That's been a big concern for citizens. So we'll be looking at that with tree removal and how that will work into that budget if we can make that happen. So just this Saturday, come out at 9 o'clock, refreshments are served, bring your gloves, bring your boots, come out and make a difference in that park with the Great Harbor Stream team. And I think that's Bob Smith's daughter that heads up that. So.
Yes, Kylie Smith. Yeah.
Kylie Smith does a great job. So for my report this evening, we talked about this project. There are flyers on the back table. And yes, you know, we did get this, I do want to say, we did get this packet out. We had hoped to have it out earlier. As you can see, there was a lot on it. We have just been going nonstop, all of us. And our goal is to get it out early, get the minutes posted up at the post office, get all of that done and get back on track. So please bear with us. Please have patience. As I said, some grace here. We are doing our very best. And the goal is to get it out early to everybody. And have it posted. As you can see, it's posted in more places than it has been in the past. And so, talking about what is happening, we have 2 RCO grants that we are working on, that Mr. Raines and myself worked on. And we have one right now, which is an RCO grant, and that is for the Mill Creek project. It's a preservation project, and what that involves is redoing the tennis courts up there, redoing the steps going up to the tennis courts, re-roofing the gazebo, I'm trying to think, fixing some of the fencing up there, and the basketball hoop up there. And so that's what that grant covers. We can't rip anything out, it's preserving what we have. And so I think a lot of people were under the impression that we got that $100,000 grant and we're gonna start on it. That is not the case. We were awarded that grant. However, with everything else, things have to happen. And so this year, what has to happen is we have to have HDR come in and give us a built environmental assessment. We have to stay within $6,300 for that assessment. The person that came in that was recommended, that I got from some notes here at the city, was $11,000. So I'm reaching out to find someone that fits in with that budget. And so once we get that done, and then we will have that assessment done, that's the only money that can be spent out of that budget, out of that grant budget this year. Once that assessment is done, the council signs off on it. We will get the $100,000 award, and that will start in 2025, okay? The next grant is another state grant, and we are just in the early stage of that, and I was involved in helping write this grant. This is for, number 1 is a preservation grant, number 2 is a recreational grant, and this is for Lions Park, and the goal for this grant was to totally redo that baseball field, put new bleachers up there, redo the baseball mound. Where the old basketball court is to put in a pickleball court that is all fenced in. So we submitted that grant. It's in the, it's just in the submitting stage. And so meaning that they're looking at all the grants, and we won't know for probably another month if we are one of the grantees that applied, and if we're going to be accepted. So let's hope that happens. That'll be exciting because they pay for the cost, they pay for the labor, they pay for all of it. So it won't cost the city anything, and it will be a huge improvement in our community. Moving on from that. So what is happening? I know we've had a change in staffing. People were concerned about what happens with these grants. I'm a grant writer. We're not going to drop these grants. I'm going to look for more grants for the city. I am happy to do that. And so we are going to work closely with economical development, looking at land and, business development here, land parcels. We are, we'll continue our planning commission. We'll continue to work toward developing a comprehensive park plan and a comprehensive city plan that does involve funds. So right now we really are working on the park funding. So these are things we hope to see go through next year. So that is my report at this time. And then, so we move on to new business, and it's an interlocal agreement for law enforcement, and we have a guest. Chief Green is here tonight to speak on that.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for having me back. In your packet should be the interlocal agreement that we submitted to the mayor last week for your approval. I wanted to come here and talk about that, so if you had any questions or concerns, we could try to hammer that out so we could get it signed and approved. It's pretty consistent with what we had talked about during that first meeting. We have a scope of work attached to that as well, and then a memo to kind of explain how it's going to work on the street for your cops and our cops when people call 911, what that's going to look like, how paper flow goes, and those kinds of other concerns that always seem to come up when we have two agencies that are working together. Sounds like with your financial consultant, if there's an opportunity that you guys may be able to increase the amount of coverage that you can afford or something for your own city, and you have more reserves or something like that, then we can certainly talk about back at the amount of time that we're needed. You know, we're here to help you, so if that's something that you guys are interested in, you know, we have, it's a 6-month agreement for now, but I said we can terminate either side with 30 days notice, and we can also review this at any time too, if we need to sit down and try to modify this to make it work for both parties. So, be happy to entertain any questions or concerns that any of you might have.
I have one for you.
Yes, sir.
Section 4.4, Cosmopolis shall transmit 50% of its locally retained ticket revenue to Aberdeen every 3 months. These funds will be deposited into Aberdeen's general fund. Could you, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Sure, that'd be an infraction. So for some reason, an Aberdeen police officer has handled a traffic collision in the city of Cosmopolis, and we issued an infraction for whatever reason, a causing reason, then we would get half of that revenue.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't anticipate that being very much.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's what, I was just curious if it was what you guys were doing or if it was what our officers were, you know, writing.
Because we still have court costs associated with our infractions that we issue as well, and so you guys will too.
Yeah.
I think my question is for my fellow councilman and the mayor, and for you also, Chief Lehman. Are we wanting a vote on this today?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. And Councilman, are we feeling like we need more time to review, or are we okay with?
With the direction we went last meeting, deciding we were gonna go with Aberdeen and not the county, we kind of do need to make a move on this. It doesn't seem like there's much adjustment or much, you know, change we can make at this time. We've, you know, locked ourselves into it by saying yay last, or who did say yay last meeting.
I make a motion to enter into this interlocal agreement for law enforcement services with Aberdeen.
A second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say yay.
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 Any opposed?
Yay.
Okay, so we will sign that contract.
Excellent, thank you very much. So go to the Aberdeen City Council next week, so then you'll get us, you guys will sign your copy, and then we'll give you our signed copy. And then, as I said before, we'll have full transparency, we'll keep you guys in the loop of things that we are handling for you all here. And if anything comes up, and you're not satisfied with your service for any reason, make sure you call me anytime, send me an email or whatever, we'll make sure we get this agreement to work what's best for your citizens.
Chief Green, Councilman.
For scheduling purposes, are we intending to do this between the two councils to begin at first of next month?
That's the intent, yeah, if we can get it signed by you all this week and then our council next week. And then, you know, we talk about the hours too. That's kind of gonna depend too, because you have reserves that are able to cover some hours, so we may have some flexibility. There's flexibility in the schedule, so it may not be exactly 7 in the morning. There might be days where your reserves can cover later, or your officers are able to work a different shift or something, but the spirit is the amount of hours that we are covering. Yes, sir.
Yes, Chief Green, Councilman Skinner. Would there be any opportunity for one of your officers to be able to attend our meeting? And if we had any questions, our monthly meeting?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make sure that somebody's here. It'll probably be our commander, one of our patrol lieutenants, because
Sure.
they work with us, so they have a better idea what's going on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, just in the last month, we've only had to respond to 4 calls in the city of Cosmopolis to assist on backing, so, yeah.
Thank you, Chief Green. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Thank you.
Next, we're going to move on to the comprehensive stormwater plan, and we have Scott Burchard. would you like to come up and speak, please?
Whatever your name.
Yeah, whatever your name is. I have a lifetime of mispronunciations.
Well, and I'm an expert at
Should I stand so I can address the audience too?
Yes, please do.
In front of the
Talk
TV.
All right.
Oh, and before you, so you see Chris, I'm sorry, Chris. So our attorney is with us this evening, Chris Coker, and so when you see Chris, our attorney is here this evening, and you had questions like, oh, is he gonna drive down and charge us? Well, he's not, he's on Zoom this evening, okay? Okay, Scott, it's all yours.
Okay. I did send a memo, and I don't know if you've all had a chance. It's probably a bit foreign to you, so I'll try to walk you through it. So I'm Scott Betcher. I'm staff to the Chehalis River Basin Flood Authority. And the Flood Authority was created in 2008 after the big 2007 flood. And some of you may have remembered that. And the Flood Authority is a group of 13 governments throughout the Chehalis Basin. We've got the 3 counties, Lewis County, Thurston County, Grace Harbor County, and then a host of cities within towns within those counties. And we do 2 things. We focus on local projects. There are projects that the communities want to help them with flood hazard reduction. There's things like the Montesano treatment plant. We protected that. That was going to be, the Wanich River was going to erode around it, and that really jeopardized it. We did the Mill Creek Dam.
Yeah, close.
We did the Mill Creek Dam. We've protected wastewater treatment plants up in PL. So up and down the basin, we've done about 100 projects since about 2009. The other thing we do is we have a flood warning system. And the flood warning system is something we're really proud of. It's been leveraged heavily, meaning it has costed the taxpayers not as much as some big jurisdictions, their systems. And it has the capability to send email alerts when different gauges in the river are getting high, indicating that you should maybe think about moving your animals or moving your cars or moving something because we may have a flood. So we can't stop flooding, but we can live with flooding and a changing environment. So anyway, Cosmopolis has been a member of the Flood Authority since 2011. And Frank was your last previous representative to the Flood Authority from 2015 to 2019. And that's when the Mill Creek Dam was completed. Your prior Public Works Director or Community Development Director, Darren, was managing 2 local projects for us. One was what we called Mill Creek Phase 2. So Phase 1 built the dam. Phase 2 said there's still 4,500 feet of Mill Creek that has undersized culverts in it that back up and cause problems. What are we going to do? And so one of these agreements for $170,000 was to study that and figure out what the heck you're going to do. The other one was Cosmopolis, Aberdeen, and Hoquiam had joined forces to come up with a combined flood plan, principally because the only real solution for flooding in the lower basin is pumps. When you have a high tide, water's flowing down the Chehalis River, the only way to get it out is to pump it out. And Aberdeen has this brand new Fry Creek pump that maybe some of you have heard about. It's a phenomenal piece of equipment and engineering expertise. We put a brand new pump at the Chehalis Centralia Airport because that one failed in 2007. So pumps are really important. Down here, you're going to need a lot of pumps because of the North Shore Levee and the west segment. You may need, in the lower basin, 10, 12 pumps. They're not cheap, and no one is running to give you money for pumps. So this pump plan idea was to say, let's get the 3 cities joining forces on the same kinds of pump technology. Let's get the cities cross-trained so they can support each other if there's a pump failure. And then let's have the cities all put in utility structures so that when we go to the legislature and we say, we have a plan
We know which investment is the priority number one. And we have a utility structure behind us, so we can always maintain these things, because the legislature doesn't want to fund things that you can't maintain, and that's smart. We'll have a better chance of getting tens of millions of dollars is what it's really going to cost. So that planning process is very important, and Cosmopolis was leading it. So here we are today. We would like, and I have the recommendations down here, like the motions, the actions I'd like you all to take. We would like to consolidate those two planning processes. To some extent, they were conceived at different points in time, but in reality, planning for Mill Creek is not a lot different than planning for this, the pump planning and all that. That if we combined them, we would produce in the end one final report, not two, and we might save $12,000. And then we would shift the sponsorship of that joint planning over to Hoquiam. Hoquiam has offered Brian Shea, and they have the capacity to take over the planning for all three cities, pay the bills, make sure everybody gets paid. These were 100% grants, so it's cost neutral to you. Well, it's actually probably cost savings because you don't have to administer and oversee. And there is a certain amount of administration when you're dealing with the state grants. So the recommendation, to you all that would help us to keep this going, and we think it's very important to keep this going, is to appoint Frank as your representative to the Flood Authority. Frank was a representative 2015 to 19 from Cosmopolis. Number two, to support merging and consolidating these two efforts. And this is all your decision because it's in your court now. Number three, transferring sponsorship over to Hoquiam. And number four, just because we transfer it over to Hoquiam, there is still going to be a Cosmopolis portion of this plan, and someone needs to review it. And Frank will ride herd on who's ever available, and he will look at it, I will look at it, the mayor will bring it to the council. Kim is going to be, we would like him to be shadowing Frank, and because Frank's not going to do this forever. And then, so we need a technical person, and then lastly, need you to let me, as the Flood Authority staff person, close all your books. And you have 4 outstanding bills. It's not you're not in arrears. There's just 4 bills that haven't been paid yet, and they actually haven't been submitted yet. And so I have to get them submitted. We got to get them paid so we can officially close out. It's purely administrative. And the memo I gave you, and then I'll stop and let you ask questions. And this is what is really, I think, unique about the Flood Authority. The last page of your memo is basically me tracking every single project that we're administering right now, $9 million in projects up and down the basin. And we watch, and we don't watch like in an authoritative way. We collaborate to make sure that money is always going to the purposes for which the legislature intended, which is flood hazard reduction for people and businesses. And if we have money that's sitting idle because for some reason they couldn't get an engineering design done or something else came up, we'll work to get that money back into motion. And what this table does, and I don't expect you to understand it because you're seeing it for the first time, but it's to leave you with the impression, and it's an accurate perception, that the Flood Authority is a tremendously valuable asset to your communities because of the partnership and the methods that we use to make sure money is always going to getting projects done. And sometimes it drives the grant agencies crazy because we de-obligate and re-obligate and we move around money. But we get projects done every single year. And it's really, having been involved in governmental processes for a long time, this has been a wonderful opportunity to have been part of because of the spirit of collaboration and sharing. So that's all I have to say, and I'll take any questions. And Frank, of course, is your hopeful representative. And past representative can say whatever he wants to say.
You know, I might gift this audience and keep my mouth shut tonight. They've heard me talk enough.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, we are really going to be off the hook for any funds, and we're gonna be covered with the combining
Yeah.
these projects, so.
Yeah, so part of it, there is the whole plan for a dam in the upper basin. You've all maybe heard of that. Those are big expenditures and take a lot of time. Regardless of what you think about the dam, there's a lot of study and effort that goes into it. In the meanwhile, we do these local projects because we know they do help. They won't really, in a totally catastrophic flood, stop things. We have to deal with that. But we can handle a lot of the smaller floods with these projects. And so we work really hard to get some done every single year. And 100 projects over 10 years, 12 years, tells you. Yeah, so anyway, there you go.
Questions from the council?
I have one.
Sure.
For step 4, the technical contact, I see it says contact or contacts.
Yeah.
How do we choose who's gonna be the contacts? You mentioned Mr. Skinner. I'd like to volunteer myself to take part in this as well, if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had come down and met with the mayor and Councilman Skinner, and he offered to be part of the flood authority, and we talked about having Frank because of his past involvement at the policy level on the flood authority. However you all want to work it, that's great. You know, if you want to share, co-shadow. So there's kind of 2 levels of involvement. There's the flood authority, there's Cosmopolis' representative to the flood authority. And then what I was looking for down here at number 4 is when we develop the draft stormwater plan, it has to be reviewed, and it's going to be a technical document. And so someone, and I heard there's Jim, someone who knows all of Mill Creek and all the culverts and all that. Is that? There you go. I found him. So someone like who has knowledge of your system. I mean, I don't. Yeah. So we need kind of 2 levels, but if we would love to have you involved, and we should figure it out. And I'm happy to come down and give you. I have given presentations to all the basin governments about the flood authority, and there's more of a story to it, and I'm happy to do that. I think most of you are new, and we can set that up and then figure out how to keep you all engaged.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
I'd just like to comment that I appreciate your presentation and bringing this to us. As a citizen of Cosmopolis, flooding is probably like my greatest fear.
Yeah.
It's the most likely thing to cause significant property damage or present a risk to the safety of my family. It's on my mind sometimes when I really don't want to be thinking about it. And I, as many folks here did, voted for better stormwater management practices for the city. I think my questions are really directed at Chief Valley. I think I know how the mayor feels about this. Do you see any issues, or do you, what's your feeling about this proposal?
Yeah, I mean, Scott and I just talked a little bit about it before the meeting. That's the first I've looked through this, but it makes complete sense to me. Making sure that we still have the local say through Frank and hopefully Kim and potentially Justin as well. Make sure that we have that say. Consolidating them makes sense. They're in the same ballpark. Potentially saving money throughout that grant process and shipping it over to Oakland. Because as we mentioned earlier, even with RFA, we don't have a whole lot of overhead here to manage extra grants, and the amount of work that goes into managing grants can be quite significant. So if Oakland's willing to take that on, Scott and I get to work together a lot. So.
Do any of my fellow councilmen have any concerns?
No.
Reservations?
I guess I was lucky. I walked into the hall before
Scott showed up and I got the presentation already on it. And he said they needed a body and I volunteered. I didn't really know why I did, but that's just what I do sometimes. And then when I got the opportunity to be able to work with Frank or Shadow Frank, wow,
Why
that
don't
was
you
really
walk
cool.
by my house later?
Yeah, okay.
I think we have a comment from
Uh,
Frank.
just
one thing very quickly, the authority meets, I believe, every other month.
Every other month now.
Their next meeting is on the 16th of May,
Yep.
which is the day following your next council meeting. And I'll be making regular reports to you all in one fashion or another. I'll be delighted to show up again, of course, at the relevant meeting, but we'll miss by a day.
That's my
right.
next question.
And if anybody at the council table seems to think you need something relevant to the flood authority, most of the people in this room know how to find me, so go ahead and look for me, call me, drop by the house or whatever, right?
I could come back in April meeting if you'd like to give you enough, or are we in April?
We're in April. We are in April.
Next April.
Okay.
I like that. It won't hurt my feelings if people want more time on this, but I'll motion that we accept the recommendation.
I second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say,
We got one. Oh, no, sorry. Be quiet, Kim.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. So we will get that contract signed.
Good, thank you.
Okay, next we're moving on to item C, resolution for multi-jurisdiction hazard mitigation plan. Chief Fowler.
Thank you. So speaking of flooding, it's a nice dovetail there. About a year ago, so early on last year, the county secured a grant to revise the 2017 multi-jurisdictional all hazard mitigation plan for the county. This is a comprehensive plan that analyzes the county's hazards as a whole, and then each of the cities are invited into the planning process to create their own jurisdictional annexes as well as special grace districts. So in the last planning process, we have 19 jurisdictional partners. This planning process, we have 18 jurisdictional partners. Grace Harbor Fire District 5, with their transition to East Grace Harbor, had to take a quick leap that they're planning on linking in later on. So the resolution before you tonight is the city's formal adoption of this plan. Yesterday, I went before the county commissioners, and the county commissioners adopted the plan as a whole plan. The city of Hoquiam is the only other jurisdiction that has adopted the plan so far. Last week, we received our formal, it's called an EPA letter, approval pending adoption from FEMA. So back in October of last year, I gave a presentation of the risks and hazards identified within this plan, how they're ranked within the city of Cosmopolis. And after that, we put the plan out on Grace Harbor County's website for a 45-day public comment period. After the 45-day public comment period, we took those revisions into account throughout the entirety of the plan, and it was sent off to Washington State Emergency Management Division for their review. They had 30 days to review, and then to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, for their 45-day review. And they're who ultimately issued us this letter, approval pending adoption, with 0 revisions throughout the entirety of the 941-page plan. So, moving forward, if you guys approve the resolution, which Chris did review at the attorney level, we will then grab the signed resolution, send it up to FEMA, where we will get our official letter stating that we do have a hazard mitigation plan for the next 5 years. The biggest benefit of this plan, besides all the man hours you guys have already spent between Chief Lehman, myself, and Darren Rains on working on this plan, is this opens us up for federal hazard mitigation funding through their grant program, so the hazard mitigation grant program. Each time we have a federally declared disaster, there is a portion of that money that is set aside from the federal government that's rolled back down to the state levels that local jurisdictions can then bid or apply for to get funding for their local hazard mitigation items. So when we talk flood control, I'm sure Scott ends up getting to work with pest mitigation plans quite a bit there. Yeah, that's the biggest advantage is getting that funding back so they can get it. So, any questions regarding the plan or the resolution?
There's no cost associated to the city for this?
No, the county wrote and managed the federal grant for this. It's about $250,000 to write the entire plan. So the cost to the city, which was approved about a year ago, is the staff's time, is the city's in-kind match into the federal grant. So we've already met all of our requirements for the cost associated.
Is there,
So I have one for you. You just gotta simplify it for me. We're just pretty much getting our paperwork in order.
Yep, you're adopting the plan. Plan's written, finalized, it's gone through all the federal, state, and local requirements necessary. You're signing the piece of paper saying this is our plan. It's good for 5 years once you sign it.
All right, thank you.
I'll make a motion.
is there a second?
Yeah.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed? So moved. So we,
I'm also a yay.
I thought you said a yay.
I'm sorry, there's a lot going on.
Okay. And so we're moving on. I think the chief already talked about the file mobilization interagency. Is that agreement?
Nope, this is a different agreement.
Okay.
So,
He
this
gave
is
us
our
a lot.
agreement between the city of Cosmopolis and Washington State Patrol. We entered into this agreement toward the beginning of last year. The State Patrol in their contracting office wants everybody on a 5-year cycle. So we were, it was just a temporary agreement through the end of last year. It took them a long time to give us the agreement this year, but it's the same agreement that we signed last year. It's just the 5-year renewal span, taking us through 2029. So that's longer than 5 years this time. The last time was 5 years. So it'd be a 7-year renewal this time. So what this is the city's participation in the statewide mobilization plan. So this is how we can move resources statewide and have Washington State Patrol basically reimburse us for certain assets that get mobilized. So it gets used predominantly on fires, but it's actually technically an all-hazard plan, so we can use it on a multitude of incidents. This also allows us to be able to request fire mobilization to the city of Cosmopolis if we were. Great example would be a massive issue over at Cosmo. That might be something beyond what our region can support, and we need assets from outside of the region to come support it. Any questions on that?
Is there anything in here about my firstborn?
That's the next agreement. I'll get to that one in a second.
So is there a motion to approve this
I'll just
agreement?
keep it.
Who moved?
So moved. A motion.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, I have another question, and I'm just a simple-minded guy. All this fancy paperwork, as I got it yesterday, it's a lot to sort through. Once again, is there any funding that is involved with this that's gonna come out of the city?
That costs the city?
Yeah.
It opens us up for reimbursement.
So we're back into just kind of getting our paperwork in order?
It's the same agreement from last year, just the renewal. Yep.
To make it proper for the poor note keeper here, I make a motion that we accept the fire mobilization interagency agreement.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, moving ahead. Next, we have another from Chief Valley. Yes, so the file mobilization interagency.
We already did that one. This
Yes,
one is the,
Great Harbor County Emergency management.
Yes, so this is the one that made your guys' packet very long, and I apologize for that. When I sent it over, we were supposed to just have the 10-page agreement. We accidentally added in the 51-page amendment, or not amendment, but annex. So the 51
saving money
pages
on
of the
paper.
10-page agreement are what Grace Harbor County, Washington State Emergency Management Division, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, that's their agreements. We just reference it in our 10-page agreement, it accidentally got put in. So the 10-page agreement is, I've talked with the council multiple times about a grant that Chief Lehman and I put together with huge help to Adam in the police department. So this is a grant for $11,000 to the city, $6,000 to go to the police department, and $5,000 to go to the fire department for mobile data terminals, two for 2 police vehicles and 2 for 2 fire vehicles. So this is a federal allocation through FEMA that comes out every year since 9/11 to help communications infrastructures at the local level combat local terrorist events. So that's why specifically the mobile data terminals were chosen by the city. The police departments are very much so aging. They were purchased, this grant program, I believe in '08 is how old some of those computers are, and the fire department currently has none. So we applied for this grant back in September. So this is the city officially adopting the grant. This is a reimbursement grant, so the city is going to have to spend the $11,000 and submit for reimbursement from the grant. Any expenses in excess of $11,000 are the city's responsibility, but we're working very closely with Adam Johnson to make sure that we do not go above the $11,000. So it's $11,000 to be plenty to cover what we're trying to do.
I guess my question would be not only for you, but for the mayor. You have that in your budget, or do we have that in our budget to be able to do?
I spoke with our CPA, and yes, we could cover that because we will be reimbursed for that.
And since there are the lifespan of this grant, we have until June of 2025 to complete the grant.
Oh, heck, we're in great shape then.
Well, if we're doing 4, we could buy a part at a time, get reimbursed, buy another part, get reimbursed. I mean, we could segment it up to make sure that we get it rather than spending $11,000 tomorrow, if that's what we need to do at the local level. So we have different benchmarks that we would submit for reimbursement from the county.
Thank you, Chief.
Of course.
How is their reimbursement? I mean, are we gonna buy it and then it's gonna take 6 months to a year to get that money back in our funds?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the county level, we have to send out progress reports every 2 months. There's a timeline within that 50-page document, if you'd like to look at that, of when we have to send the progress reports to the county. And then any expenses that we have within that 2-month period, we will send the invoice to the county. What is nice about how we set this up at the county level is the city will bill the county turns around that voucher typically in a couple of weeks, and then the county submits to FEMA for the federal reimbursement, so that we're getting the money back to the local as fast as possible.
That's pretty cool.
So I know yesterday we received Hope Williams project from last year. They sent us an invoice. I believe that checks are being issued for. So we try to keep a quick turnaround on that. I get to manage this at the county level as well and manage this grant.
Okay, thank you.
Spend a lot of time on it. What's that?
No insider trading.
No insider trading.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Is there?
I make a motion that we accept the Grays Harbor County Emergency Management Sub-Recipient Agreement.
A second.
There was a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all of those in favor say yay.
Yay.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we're moving on. Next, the M&O levy, Councilman Skinner.
Chief Haley, would you like to take this? We started with ideas of how to save our police department officers back in January at a finance subcommittee. meeting, and things were bannered around as ways of finding other sources of income, and heaven forbid, another levy. But it is a way of the citizens getting the type of service they want. They'll know what they're paying for from a budget that is produced by the police department year by year, and they're gonna come and ask you to approve their budget instead of you having to worry where it comes out of the general fund, or us having to deal with how we make it up and how we end up doing it. And so it's just right now to look to form another financial subcommittee to just look at the proposal to put to the citizens. Is it even feasible? How much? What is it that they will need other than what can come from the general fund? So there's lots of it before we ever tell you you're gonna have another tax. And it's gonna be up to you whether it even happens or not. It'll first be at this floor, and then it'll come to the citizens before it happens. So all I'm trying to do is put a motion together that we can explore this option. So again, I would like to make a motion. I even wrote mine down. To form a public safety subcommittee with equal representation of the citizens and the council to begin the process of creating a maintenance and operation levy proposal to fund the Cosmopolis Police Department. The subcommittee's proposal will need to be completed by June 30th of 2024.
I will second.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I have something. If it's just for discussion and it's just to get kind of the ball rolling to see what the possibilities look like, I'm open for that. I definitely am not open on taxing the citizens anymore. I feel as the community, they are feeling enough pressure on them with the economy and with the struggles we've had. So if it's just getting the ball rolling and getting some documentation, everyone knows I love some paperwork. And I'm willing to go forward with something like that, Mr. Skinner.
If I could address that, Kim, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
I'm willing to look at it.
Yeah, I feel similarly, I feel a little less urgency, to exploring a levy, considering our budget situation, our budget outlook has. That was supposed to wake me up this morning, but I take PM instead of AM. Well, now I will. Considering our budget outlook has much improved, I feel a little less urgency to explore the levy, but I'm still open to seeing what it might look like. And of course, if a levy is ultimately up to the citizens to decide, and they should have the right to make that choice.
So, and I guess the reason that I tried to put a date on to end it and get the proposal to the citizens is because to be able to get it on August or September's ballot, which is November's ballot, we have to have it submitted by August. So getting that right. I hope I'm getting closer. I thought that's what you had told me, that like August 5th, it had to be submitted to get it on November's ballot.
I believe that's accurate.
Okay.
It's the election before.
And so that's why I tried to set a date, not have it open-ending, that 2 years from now, we're still trying to figure out where to find money. And this has happened already. I don't want to see it happen again. So that's why I'm trying to get it done by a certain time. So if it passes, I will look out. Mark and I will look out to see if there's citizens or any other council members that want to be involved with the committee. Because of open record stuff, we can only have 2 of us council members on it at a time. But we would like to match that with just citizens out there that would be. So if you're interested, shoot us, either one of us, an email, and we will get back with you and see what we can do. We have had a couple of people approach us that said they would be willing to help us put the thing together, but we want to open it up to everybody. That's it. On discussion.
Okay. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? say
Aye.
any opposed? Not hearing any, we're moving on. At this time, we'll open for council comment. Thank you. Oh, wait. Oh, I'm sorry. Show me. Are you awake for this? So number G, rules of governing meetings, Councilman Nguyen wanted to speak on that this evening.
Yeah, I'll try to be very brief here, and I'm not asking for any action on this tonight. There's no urgency to this one, but I do think that it might move our meetings more forward in the future, and I think if Councilman Skinner has to make one more motion tonight, it might just break. So rules for governing meetings is our municipal code that outlines the items and order of items on the agenda. So if you have the agenda with you, it basically says that, number 2 will be the flag salute, number 3 will be the call to order, number 4 will be approval of agenda. It just outlines the order of those items. So my proposal is essentially that we just reevaluate some of the order of the agenda items. I've observed in some of the previous council meetings that there's just been quite a lot of frustration, I think, both from the public and from us as city officials. There's no opportunity here for us to really answer your questions. So if you come up and make a public comment, you have questions, there's no council comment that follows that where we can address those questions. There are situations, so a little broader context, the city council meetings are for the councilors, the 5 city councilors, to make decisions. That's why they're called city council meetings. It's not a town hall meeting, but the public comments exist, somewhat as an artifact of times when maybe the only chance you'd ever have to get a city councilor to listen to you is to show up to the meeting, right? Nowadays you have email, so please email us if you can. But if you come to a meeting and you learn something for the first time, you have an insight or perspective here that might influence our decision making, it's important that you have the opportunity to share that. Right? That's what the public comment is for, is so that you can educate us about an option that we might not have considered, and we can use that information to make better decisions. My proposal is essentially that we restructure some of the items on this meeting agenda to ensure that everybody gets that information. So just as one example, you have your public comments for item 5, right? And that's your opportunity to talk about agenda items. Now, if you look at, new business, any of those items, how many of you realistically knew what any of those agenda items were about? How could you make a public comment about something when you didn't have any idea what it was going to be about, right? So that's frustrating for everyone. And then, if we made a decision up here today feeling in full confidence that was the right decision, and then we hear from someone later, hey, I didn't have a chance I didn't know that was going to be discussed. I could have shared this new insight that might have changed somebody's mind or change the direction in some way, then I think that will be valuable. So I don't have anything drafted right now. I have it on a sticky note, okay, if anybody wants that for a public records request. I'll leave it up on the board there. No, I'll write something up before, before we bring anything to vote, but essentially what I'm looking at is proposing that we reorder the agenda items so that there's an opportunity for everybody to hear discussion, to hear all the reports, to hear all of the discussion of new items before there's public comment, before there's council comment, and then council can vote having the full knowledge, and citizens can have the full opportunity to get that information for their public comment as well.
So what exactly are you proposing to change the format of the agenda?
Yeah, would you like me to just go down the list?
Absolutely.
This is just a draft, and so I'm wanting there to be time for people to look it over, and so when I have something in writing, there will still be time for people to look it over and make suggestions. So I'm suggesting that we begin. So after call to order, after approval of agenda, we would start with council comments. So the council can address any concerns that the public has. Then we would move to committee reports, then city official reports, mayor's report, new business, but new business being for discussion only. Then public comments, so that on the agenda items. So now that everybody's reported out, public can now respond to those reports. And then the only new item would be a legislative action session, and that's currently we do that in new business, but it's just us saying, okay, this is the period where we vote on things. Now that we've heard everything, now we vote. And then concluding with open public comments, and then lastly, council comments, so that we have the opportunity to respond to any of those questions that came up in public comment. That's the rough draft. Like I said, I'll get that in writing. I will have that shared with all the councilmen for their input, and I invite anybody else who has thoughts or concerns to reach out to us. And just in general, please email us if you have any questions or concerns. Yeah.
And council member, this is Chris Coker. If you want to send me that too, I can take a look at it, because there's lots of options for you guys on how you want to run these things. So
yeah, thank you very much. I will do that.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Chris. So there will be no motion on that. That was informational. Do we have any other council comments this evening?
I've got one. Chris, can you hear me?
Chris?
Yes, go ahead.
My question is for you. I expressed my concern to the mayor over this. We have 3 jobs posted. Yep. Two of them have new titles.
Mm-hmm.
Do those have to be okayed by the council when there is a job title change?
You know, I looked at that, and so in the code, department heads are appointed at the pleasure of the mayor. You know, a lot of times it might, you know, I've seen ordinances or that say, you know, hey, the mayor appoints subject to the approval of the council. Your guys' ordinances don't say that. In terms of the issue of changing a job title, I mean, we did that in Montesano, for example, and I think we created something called I think we made our court clerk the CFO or something, or we added a title to it. And if I remember correctly, that was administrative from a governance point of view, and it was the mayor as the sort of head of personnel's position to do that. And I don't recall us running that through council. And I would say the same here, because really from a governance point of view, it's up to the mayor to create the job descriptions and things like that. But now, is it a bad idea to run that by council? Not necessarily. But I think ultimately under the authority granted by ordinance, it's the mayor's call to do that.
Okay, my question and concern over it is we have existing jobs that are in our Cosmopolis municipal code.
Right.
And those are adopted by resolution, correct? By the council?
By ordinance.
Get
into code, it's got to be ordinance.
Correct. So, okay, so they're adopted by ordinance, and we've got 2 new job titles with the pay for those is controlled by the budget, which is the council's.
Right. Yes.
But we didn't have a say in the titles, the descriptions, or the pay.
So the pay would not be controlled by ordinance. The pay would be something that would be, again, that's something where, if it's a budget item and there's a specific number budgeted, for example, then and it took an amendment to the budget, that'd be an individual ordinance to do that amendment. Also, what often happens is when cities are hiring new people, you have somebody come in who might be really good, might have some additional skill set or something, which they may ask more money, or the budget or the council may give an authority on what we're going to pay this person, and the hiring authority, which would be the mayor, would want to go beyond that. And if it's been something that's been granted by the council in terms of their authority, and the mayor wants to change that authority, then the question becomes, yeah, it does need to go back to council. In Cosmopolis' situation, I haven't seen ordinances. I mean, I've seen the title issue. You're correct, and I'm not aware of what the title changes are, whether it's an additional title, if it's Public Works Director / something or whatever it is. I don't think that negates the necessarily the opening of a position. But if a position is changed, whether by indirect action or sort of by de facto, their duties have changed over time, then that's something that the ordinance would want to be updated.
Okay.
And Chris, if I could speak to that, so I think, Jim, you may be referring to the clerk treasurer, is that correct, as one of them?
Well, there's two of them.
So are you referring to the clerk treasurer as one of them?
One of them is the clerk treasurer, which used to be a finance director, and the second is a part-time utility billing clerk, which used to be the deputy clerk.
So let me speak to that. So I went back in, looked at personnel files to see what contracts we had prior to the finance director. She was a clerk treasurer. Any contract that we have in her personnel file, that's the only one that is signed. She was promoted to a finance director. There is no signed contract. That was a position that I filled to help with our budget right at this time. And so I went back, looked at that is in that person's file as a clerk treasurer, and it is a signed contract. And next, the utility, there was never the title, and it wasn't for the deputy clerk, it was for another clerk that was a utility clerk that was paying out of the utility fund. Neither for the deputy clerk or the utility clerk was there a job title in those files or contract signed for that. And so went back to the utility clerk. We do not have an HR department here, so Aberdeen assisting us, their HR pulled up and gave us a solid job description, which we should all have. They should be posted so everyone sees we're not just filling position, and that's what I did, Chris.
Chris, I have a question in the same line of topic. I might be mistaken, but I believe I saw that there is a council confirmation for city heads. Could you look into that again?
I will. I looked at, because I think it's section 2. I looked at that today, and maybe I missed it, but I didn't. I can look again, and again, I'll be honest with you, it would be a little strange if it's not in there, but I didn't see it when I glanced at it before the meeting. So I can take a look again.
You are correct. They're appointed by mayor, confirmed by council.
Yeah, confirmed by council. Right. So I believe a superintendent would require confirmation. I've already spoken to the mayor about potentially updating some of those job descriptions throughout the process. I think one of my main concerns with the job descriptions that we were provided from Aberdeen is that in most cases, I think they're perfectly adequate job descriptions, but since our public works in particular is structured quite a bit different from Aberdeen's and now even more so, we might want to add some responsibilities. We need someone in public works who can ensure that we are pursuing eligible grants and has a little bit more maybe managerial experience than the superintendent from Aberdeen might have. But we've already discussed those changes as well. So.
And looking at, I finally did, as I said, as I was searching through personnel files and looking at, actually the superintendent of public works, I actually did come across that, provided that to the council tonight. And I would agree with Mr. Nguyen. I'd like to see a superintendent of public works We do have it posted because we do have a need to get positions filled, but to see that updated and ran by the council.
Yeah, and so, sorry, I think what I was trying to say was, I think maybe not all of the council have been looped into that, but please, as you review those job descriptions, if you see changes that you would like to make, we need to make those changes before we hire somebody. Because once we hire somebody with that job description, then, that's their job description.
And so, Chris, I would ask you this, as a mayor, when I checked with MRSC, Clear Risk Solutions, you also, our previous attorney, I was told that I could fill the clerk treasurer position and the utility clerk. The only one that I would really say that I would really like to view would be the superintendent of public works, because I feel there's a lot more to that we could look at.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't, my understanding is not that the treasurer would require confirmation, but if you're looking into it anyway, then.
So if the question is the job descriptions, obviously, again, yeah, I don't think the mayor has, I don't think there's an issue with the mayor sort of fiddling with the job descriptions. But again, wherever those job descriptions are listed, that would need to be updated as well.
I think we're just wanting clarification on whether council needs to confirm any of those positions.
And I apologize. I'm just not looking at the codes right now because I'm walking down the street. But yeah, so.
He's on vacation, folks. Right.
But I will look into that and confirm it. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris. So public comments tonight?
You got one.
I'm sorry. Could you stand up, please, and state your name?
Steve Davis, 825 Fifth. So a couple of comments on the most recent issue is the call for public employees. So we've written a job description, and I'm surprised that the rest of the council wasn't offered any input into that. And as far as mayoral capacity goes, whether it's legal or not legal, just a matter of general courtesy, I would think would be passed through the council. So it's fairly obvious that there's a few council members that are in the loop, and not everybody is necessarily there. So I would encourage everybody to be in the loop, so that the experience that some council members have from previous years of experience can be applied in these positions and maybe better the candidate applicant. One of the issues I have is the Public Works Director program that you require a license for water certification, where in most cases, those are certificates that can be obtained quickly. And so rather than requiring that license up front for that position, it would be a license that could be easily obtained within 6 months to a year. And my reason for stating that is we may be overlooking some very good candidates just because they don't particularly happen to have that particular license. Now, license is, you have to work inside the system for a few months, and you have to pass a test. It's fairly easy. So by putting that stipulation in there, we already have employees in the city that have those current requirements.
They do not.
It's comment period.
I'm sorry.
So our current employees do not have that license. Can't comment on it. That's the problem. So that's where I get down to Jeremy Wynn, Councilman Wynn's comment about during the discussion, during the decision, being able to have a discussion. So in new business, item B, we had a comprehensive stormwater plan. And we had a little presentation. So that presentation alone can raise some questions or new issues. So we had former Mayor Frank, who has been appointed to that position, but we talked about billing. So is the billing to bill for the administration time that Cosmopolis has already put into the program and receive funding for the billing that for the time we've already spent? Or is it billing that we're gonna be charged for something around the stormwater treatment plant? And that's where Councilmember Wynn's proposal of having public discussion under those items makes total sense, because now I can comment on it, but my question doesn't get answered. It's absurd.
Thank you for your comment. Okay.
So the other option on the M&O levy, the M&O levy is kind of like the police department building where we're at now. So we have a project that people think we need to have done. It goes in front of the voters, we vote on it, and then the management kind of falls apart, and we don't really have a cohesive plan after that. And so I would venture a guess that really good communication on the M&O levy be out there. And I would like people to go back, and I would like them to look at the information that was brought forward for the police department building, the new police department building. I supported that building for a number of reasons. But in July of last year, I asked the council not to move forward on signing that contract. And it's in the public record. But I asked for them not to do it because the plan was so drastically different than what was proposed. The plan that we voted on is so drastically different. But there was never any real public comment period or any coverage of any of that change. And so I asked that we not vote on it. Fortunately, the former council did, and we're in this position. So I would ask that the M&O levy committee be very clear and concise and very truthful with the information they put out to lobby for an M&O levy.
Duly noted.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comment? Mr. Chestnut.
Frank Chestnut, 812 Altano. To help Mr. Davis just a little bit, invoices and billings through the flood authority usually follow this routine. Work is done, an invoice is submitted. So something has had to have happened before an invoice is submitted. For example, the dam. The first part of it, the excavation and all of that was a phase. Once that phase was completed, an invoice was submitted and payment then ensued.
Thank you for your comment, Fred. Any other comments this evening?
Casey Turner, 825 2nd Street. I would just like to know if we are going to be allowed to know as citizens what the CPA finds, if they find anything that was any type of out of what it was supposed to be from what was happening before, and when that would happen, how many hours they're putting in, all of that kind of stuff. Another thing that was talked about was a preservation grant that's going to be coming up. I think you said in 2025 it would be started. And it was stated that the grant pays for labor. So is that labor coming from someone else or from our public works people? And if it comes from our public works people, then they're taken away from their daily jobs, and those jobs have to be done at some point in time. So that has to be considered also. Maybe there's money put in for labor, but if we're taking away our guys from their job, then they still have to do that other job. And then I also wanted some clarification about the citations that were written. I did hear them say that there was going to be 50% of citations, the money that we would make in Cosmopolis would go to Aberdeen, if I was correct with that, to cover your guys' costs as well. But is it all or just the citations that are written by the Aberdeen police officers?
All right, well, public comment, I guess I could offer my comment. Gio Green, I live in Montesano. Look at you. So our proposal is it's not citations. Those are criminal misdemeanors that would go to court. It's an infraction. So related to traffic stop, perhaps a collision or something we investigate or something like that.
Thank you, Mr. Green, Chief Green, for your comments.
Everything is split throughout.
Oh, no, just ours. Just ones that our offices are responsible for when they're here in Cosmopolis.
And for citizens who came in late, we did have a presentation from the CPA that will answer some of your questions. So I would encourage you to go back and view that. So thank you. And if you have any other questions, please reach out, email us, or come into the office. We're happy to answer those questions. We have another comment. Please stand and state your name.
Nick Bailey, 502 I Street. I wanted to thank the council, everybody here. This has actually been a nice change of pace from the last couple of meetings we had. So thank you for the professionalism. That really speaks volumes tonight. So everybody involved in this, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just also wanted to say that I don't think, if I'm correct, that we have to have the specific license that you're talking about for the people that, for the superintendent or public works, because our water comes from Aberdeen and they control that, not us.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Please state your name.
Steve Davis. So in response to former Mayor Chestnut's comment, so Scott, the administrator or the helper of the grant, things have happened. Our city paid an administrator to help administrate this grant. So action has happened. My question is, the billing that he's speaking of, that we're 3 billings behind on, is that something that the city is going to bill and recoup that money for our former administrator's work? And I realize you can't comment on it because, again, it's not, so that's my question.
Okay, it's been a long evening. Are there any other comments this evening? So I do want to let citizens know just a little bit. First off, I want to thank our clerk here. As you know, we've been operating very short staff. I couldn't do it. I gave her a bad time earlier because we were right down to crunch time when she was trying to put my script together that I need. So I appreciate it. Thank you. I couldn't have done this job without her. And yes, we are in an urgency to get the jobs posted. It was maybe last week or the week before, every councilman was sent a notice with the job descriptions out there. And so they were notified and encouraged to get in touch. So I appreciate all your comments. And again, I appreciate how this meeting was conducted. And please come into the office. Casey is there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I am there every day unless I have to step out for a bit. And please reach out to the councilmen. They're very responsive. I appreciate the refreshing input and thought and questions that they provided this evening. We are going to go ahead and adjourn at this time if there's no other business.
Move to adjourn.
You did send us an email notifying us about those jobs, asking for comments. I gave you a comment, and you told me that it was within your power to do that, and you were gonna do that. That was your comment.
Yes.
Am I correct?
And the comment was, yes, I am going to post these jobs because I did follow up with MRSC, Clear Risk Solutions, WAC, and our 2 attorneys. And the reason wanted to post it because we have to fill these positions that keep the city running. Right now, Aberdeen is helping us, and so we do need to get on track and do this. You know, it's been challenging, but as I said, we have good staff and people supporting us. And so, yes, if we need to look into something else, we will do that, and I appreciate your comment. And Jim, yes, you said posting new positions will be the demise of our city.
That is not what I said.
Move to adjourn meeting.
Move to adjourn meeting. Thank you, everyone.
We need a second, don't we?
Oh, is there a second to?
Second. Thank you, that's all.
That isn't what I said. If you read the lines, that's what you get. I read it, Linda, I wrote it, I know what I wrote. Good, you don't have discussions with your council, you do it as you